Coming up next on Making It Here.
I'll be joining George to introduce you to people who are passionate about sustainability and energy. Tonight we'll pay a visit to National Fiber in Belchertown and learn about the latest trends in cellulose insulation. There are a lot of stories about people finding valuable newspapers when they tear down their walls for insulation and renovation, like Lincoln's assassination or our giant leap to the moon, or anything about Elvis. Tonight we're going to go inside an insulation factory and show you how newspapers, cellulose insulation, can make a big difference for you.
National Fiber is a cellulose insulation manufacturer. We're located in Belchertown, Massachusetts, and we are within a 300-mile radius of all of New England, and this takes us out to just beyond Syracuse and down to almost the Delaware Memorial Bridge. Cellulose insulation is really a pretty simple product. It's a combination of recycled newspaper at about 83% and a fire retardant chemical called borate, which comes from the ground. It's a naturally occurring mineral, and that's about 16%. We collect newspapers from towns, churches, the Scouts. We also get a good amount of newspaper from the newspapers themselves. Everybody prints more newspapers than they sell, and so when those are returned to the newspaper, we buy those newspapers from them. That newspaper is brought here to National Fiber, and we feed it on a conveyor that takes it up to one machine, which takes these stacks of newspapers and really reduces them to pieces the size of credit cards, and then it goes through another machine that really makes it into a pulp where you literally cannot even see the writing on the pieces of paper. And then that paper is then fed into a fiberizer, where we are also then bringing the refined chemical into the fiberizer, and the fiberizer actually takes the chemical and impregnates it into the fibers themselves. So as the end product is a product of chemically impregnated fibers. This is a box that's filled with cellulose insulation. We take a lighted cigarette and we put it in, burn side up, and we allow it to sit for several hours until the cigarette burns out. If we did not have the right amount of chemical in this insulation, the insulation would have just completely charred and disappeared. Yeah, fire retardancy is really very important for cellulose insulation and for all insulations. And boric acid, the chemical that we use, is a wonderful fire retardant. It takes approximately a day to insulate an average home, let's say 2,000 square feet or something like that. And I'm talking about insulating the attics and the walls. When we look at a home, we look at what we call the thermal envelope. You try to think of it's a big balloon around the home. So it's the walls where they go into the ceilings and where they go down into the basement. It's a bubble, and you want to make sure that bubble is whole and it has no leaks in it. On dry dense pack, basically we take a netting which has a fire rating on its own, and we put this netting over the face of the studs, and then we cut a hole in the netting and we stick the tube in, and we fill the cavity completely with insulation behind this netting, and then the sheetrock can go directly on this netting.
So when people say blown-in insulation, this is what you're talking about.
This is what it's like. Gotcha. Exactly. And this is an example of low moisture spray. Now, I just want to point out that this has had quite a bit of activity on it, so this is not the way it typically looks. This is where we've had a blowtorch on it, and you can see that there was no fire on. But right up here is the way it normally looks. And so when the cellulose is sprayed in the cavity, it's at the same density as we get in here, and the results are the same. It has the same R value, the same sound qualities, the same fire ratings, etc. It's just that the people who have the equipment to do the low moisture spray are normally able to do about twice as many square feet in a week as the person who does the netting. And talking about the cost relationship between or among cellulose, fiberglass, and foam, it's basically this. Whatever size house or building you have, fiberglass will cost 1, cellulose will cost 2, and foam will cost 5 or possibly more. If you have a home insulated with cellulose as opposed to fiberglass, you will use 40% less energy per year to heat and cool that home as you will with fiberglass. So generally that combination of smaller HVAC equipment and the energy savings just in the first year is enough to justify the investment from 1 to 2, and then from year 2 on, you're keeping money in your pocket.
So living in New England, we know the value of a well-insulated home. I hope that you've learned something about cellulose tonight and what it might do for you. I'm Sandy Thomas. See you next time.